Welcome to Chapter 10. We're going to be looking at social institutions. These include politics, education, and religion. These are the systems and structures within society that shape the activities of groups and individuals. In specific areas of life, these can include your church, your school, your activities and structure that help define what's going on in your life and has influence as well. So let's get started. There are different forms of government. Now, I just want to touch on three. These are the standout that we're noticing in our materials provided. So, of course, we have authoritarianism. This group denies citizen representation. They have control over their own government, so the certain group of leaders. The citizens will no longer have say over the rules or the laws of enforcement. And the dictator is either elected or they're part of like a succession in families. So, an example of this could be North Korea. You're seeing authoritarianism in that. Under that, there can be in the authoritarianism section totalitarianism. And this is an extreme and modern version of that, where they control every aspect of public and private lives. This can be anything from looking at doing surveillance on people, looking at maybe your social media accounts, how you're communicating, looking at your weapons. They might be looking at some of the values or attitudes you've shared. So you are very restricted in that, and there's a lot of investigation to the individuals there in that country or province that they're over. So that's a version of authoritarianism called totalitarianism. The next one is monarchies. Monarchies are those kings or queens. You're going to see again a successive line. It could be because there is a family line or there is now a new ruler line, and they have complete authority, which could be they're in charge of everything, they make all the decisions, they're the king or queen, or they can have such as they're working with a governing body. So they don't have complete control over it. The governing body could be an example in Great Britain, it could be the parliament. So the king or queen has some decisions, but the parliament is elected and they're going to help making decisions and it has to come together. So with that one, that again is monarchy. You can see that with Great Britain. And you can see that through history. There are quite a few as well. The next one is democracy. Um, these can be where citizens share activities with their government rather than autographic or individual affairs. So in democracy, it's a political, it is a political system, but it's more of a philosophy. We have elected officials that represent interest and allocation. So if you are electing someone, they specifically have your interest in mind. Maybe you're wanting to see an increase in environmentalism. And maybe you are seeing a downturn in the economy, so you're wanting them to find ways to create either bills, laws, or address economy issues. So you vote for them, you find representatives, you talk with them, so you're engaging with them as well. Again, that's part of the philosophy of democracy. Um, and these can include some of those parts of um, law enforcement. Now, when you hear the word democracy, we think that everyone is included, but not all democracies are included. You have to think race, they're not always included. Someone's ethnic background, even if we look at males and females, not always included. Go back in time, just with the United States. How long did it take before people of color could vote or speak out. How many years was it that women fought for the vote, or were able to have even, bank accounts or own homes? So in a democracy, it doesn't mean everyone is equal. It just means that we have some representation and those people can make that, as an individual can represent them or a group can represent them. And again, it is a political system, but it's also a philosophy as well. I want to include just a few of the political leaders that are representing you. We often just think of the president, but we forget about all those extra people. Now, this is just a sampling because you have to remember there are so many other different committee leaders. There are going to be people at large that you're going to be voting for and having in office, even head of insurance. You're going to look at all of those aspects and you may see them on ballot boxes, and they impact the person you are by looking at your community, things you do, actions. So here are a couple examples. Just in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County area, you have your city or town mayor. You have your city or town council. You have your town or city manager. They are hired, not voted for, but they still have a huge impact. You have your county commissioners. So you're looking at your county, but they are specific to your district. And then you have the at large, the overall county commissioners. At a state level, you will have your state House of Representatives, and you're going to have your state senators. These are going to create and vote on the legislation. Your governor is going to be there, where legislation must be approved by the Senate and the House before being signed or into law by the governor or vetoed. Now, the governor also has emergency powers for disaster, budget, clemency, and appointing cabinet members. You have your U.S. House Representative. This is often known as the Congress. These are the ones that are going to introduce those bills, those things that you're encouraging them to be involved in. What are some ideas you need for your district? What do you want to see more of a national level that represents your specific area? The U.S. Senate then votes on those bills and resolutions and amendments. Then, of course, after it goes through that whole process, you're going to end up going to the executive branch, which is the president and the cabinet. Now, we forgot there's one more branch in there, and that's the judicial branch. These are made up of your U.S. district courts, your Court of Appeals, and your Supreme Court. So you have a lot of people representing you, and this is just a small element that I've listed here. I encourage you to always look at that and go into more detail. I have another section that I'm attaching. If you haven't seen the School of Rock video where I'm just a bill, I think that's a great addition because it gives you an idea of the whole process of how it starts and who it goes to, and how some of the bills that you've come up with, your ideas, are either being accepted or being denied. So I think that's a good video, and I'm going to include it as well. There are different theories on power. So Wright Mills explained the power elite. This is the theory of the power elite. This is the small portion of people that make the decisions, and the rest of us don't get those decisions. We don't get to participate in those. That rules our lives. Maybe it's a CEO of a company that's now over the economic benefits for the U.S. Or maybe there is someone of great wealth that is now over the political agenda. There might be someone in the military that's higher up, that's now on a committee making decisions. So these could impact your health, it could impact your economy, maybe the pay rate, things like this. So these small group of people, they get to make those decisions. This is called the power of elite. And then we also have the other theory, which is the pluralist theory of power. In the pluralist model, they make sure that not one group has more power over the others. So there's a lot of cooperation, there's checks and balances. They want to make sure that no religious groups or political parties or corporations have more power than one. And we do have to take in ideas between these theories that there are special interest groups that raise money to have influence. So these could be called, for example, lobbying, special interest groups. This could be anything from, if you look at in your book, you're going to see Blue Cross Blue Shield is one of the ones that invest a lot to have special interest groups. You may see things like it could be American Heart Association. That is an interest group because they're lobbying for certain services and providing out there and awareness. So you might see a variety. You might see certain companies. You're going to see certain political leaders. There's different groups in this. So again, when you're look at that power elite. You can see who you can find that are that small knit group that are helping make a lot of decision? Or are there a large number of people that have equal opportunities with making decisions and there's supposed to be some teamwork and not one person takes over more control than the other? Most people get their news online now or from their selected media outlets. Instagram, um, just post, talk shows, even TikToks. And while news was once the goal of getting out the news through the paper, trying to meet that certain deadline and see it the next morning or the afternoon news, now it can be an individual going live. So we're uh, getting their own commentary, and my question for you is, how does that influence us? If we were getting very organized news and scheduled with a news broadcast or in the newspaper, and now we're just going and hearing some person's opinion, or they're going on a scene and seeing it from their view and not doing any other investigation. Are we getting the true amount? Maybe because it's live, or are we, on the other hand, getting a different, more of a opinionated type of media? Media does influence who we are, and it can influence politics in a very large way. Um, Media also shares a lot of stories about what's going on, and it influences our actions and our decisions. Now, education is that central means where society learns knowledge and values and expectations. You also learn some of your social functioning, how to engage with others, what is the expectation. In 2024, the Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools graduation rate was 84.4%. Now, the average national rate is 70%. In North Carolina alone, in our higher education system, we have 560,300 students. Now, census shows that with each degree, income tends to grow. An example is an associate's, you make more. With a bachelor's, you can make even more, etc. Um, we have very different schools that you can go to. So you have the public schools, you have private schools, you have home schools, charter schools, dual enrollment schools, early college. That's just the start before you get to higher education. Now, add that early college into the higher education, we have that. We have private colleges, we have public universities, and we have the community college systems. We have a lot of different higher education options. So that's one of the things that it tends to be in our society is the encouragement of education, starting out whenever they're younger. So there are the requirements that a student must be engaged in one school system, whether it is public, private, homeschool, charter, dual enrollment, early college, they have to attend some form of education when they are younger. And once they get to the higher education, it of course is up to them to decide those next steps. Inequalities is something you often hear about, and we hear about that with schools and education. So inequalities is the opportunities, the number of teachers, it could be the class sizes being taught for specific jobs, maybe not encouraging higher education at one, but encouraging at another. Even food can play a role as that as well. There are a couple of studies and also that we're going to look at. One is the Pygmalion research study. This became rather controversial, and it happened in a classroom where they went in and they told people in a gifted program that some students had a higher IQ and they were going to do great, and the teachers started investing more in those certain students' behavior. And as a result, they were saying the student's behavior and the achievement was higher. So it was based on how the assumption of what the child could do converted into what the teacher provided for that student. And the teachers didn't even know that this was happening. They didn't say specifically, this is the student, you're going to give more to them and you're going to see these effects. So they specifically were encouraging it that way in a hidden basis, unbeknownst to the teachers. Then we have the conflict study. This is the concept of schools are funded by local property taxes. And children in poor neighborhoods are trapped in poor schools, which reinforces inequality. And they're saying that when there's higher spending areas, they have better schools and better opportunities. This could be maybe they have more high-tech facilities, maybe they have more teachers there. They are having encouraging other opportunities there. They may have more foreign language programs, and maybe they're having programs where they can go on trips and learn more. So there's a lot of different opportunities. There's more classes and options there. So that, of course, is going to be your conflict study. Now you have your structural functionalism study. And this says that it's abolishing compulsory school requirements and making formal credential requirements for employment illegal. So what they're saying in this study is it would make it illegal for employees to ask how much education someone has when they're applying. They want to say it's like with you're not supposed to say, ask about their race or their gender or some health issues. You're not supposed to ask those and impact whether the person gets the job or not. They're saying that it should simply be placed on their skills, but not necessarily how far they've gotten in their education with that structural theory. So these are different concepts because they're saying some people have different opportunities and that can impact their education that they give. That could impact what jobs they get. It could impact their activities that they do. So they're saying again, going through school has a big part of it. Education has a big place in your activities, your behavior, and in your future experiences. Religion can play a large part in your activities and your beliefs and your ideas. So, according to sociologists, and we're going to take this directly from the book, religion includes an institutionalized system of shared beliefs. This is propositions, ideas held on the basis of faith, and rituals. These are practices based on those beliefs that identify a relationship between the sacred, which could be your holy, divine, or supernatural, and the profane, maybe the ordinary, the mundane, or everyday. So there are different ways to look at this. There is the structural functionalism. Remember structural, they want it very structuralized. In this situation, it offers beliefs. You may have questions of who is the higher power, or is there forgiveness, or what happens after death. There are different parts of those beliefs. Let's use forgiveness as an example. Then your religion also shapes your everyday behavior by providing those morals, those values, those rules and the norms. So if your beliefs are that you should be, if in order to have this higher option, then forgiveness is important and required. So you're going to make sure to include that in your everyday life, or treat people as you would like to be treated. That's part of that belief, and then you're going to use that in your everyday life. So maybe you're going to be the person that opens the doors or thanks people, or if people are, you don't yell back at people. You're trying to have that reflective behavior. In conflict theory, you have where you have religion that can divide. There's inequality, there can be inequality and oppression, but there also can bring people together and liberate. So with religion, it could be things that, maybe my religion is different than your religion, or beliefs are different, or certain parts of your religion are unequal to another. Maybe they have different roles there. But then it also can bring people together and have a place where people can, um, maybe support each other, or they have similar ideas that can really help them be liberated. Then you have the symbolic interactionalism, and this is the interpretation. And the interpretation of religion can make its way into our daily lives, so symbolically. Religion does play a large place in people's lives. So remember that when you're looking again at systems or parts of people's everyday lives or their activities, make sure to keep that as in mind when you're looking at the different variables.